Welcome back to Your Town. This is our last segment of this show, and this is our first show as we reinstate Your Town and get the community to know that this is your town and it's your community, and we'd love to have you know more about it. So my last guest is a darling person who I love to death, Mr. Mark Baer, and this is actually his brainchild to put Your Town back on the air and let you know what's going on. So Mark, welcome.
Well, thank you, and welcome as a host. And you and I go back on this show in its previous incarnation, and we were both hosts. And you and I had this conversation. Let's get this show back. Let's get this show back. And we've been involved in many different organizations over the years, and here we are.
Here we are,
yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah.
So you, what is your plan for Your Town? You're going to have it every day of the month? How are you going to do it?
Well, it's different than it was, because we're shooting it a little differently, and we're thinking about it a little differently. And the main thing that's different is that we're going to have YourTown TV, because people watch in a different way now. So we'll still be able to have it on as a daily show, but all these episodes, as we shoot today, there'll be individual episodes on YourTown.tv, and so that people will be able to see themselves, and people will be able to see the guests on the show almost immediately and at will, and that adds some kind of value to it. And as we were talking before this segment, we're trying to create an electronic town square. And we have on the show, for instance, Naval Postgraduate School, the Arts Council, the Business Council, many of the organizations around the town were involved with the arts, the sciences, the oceanic community, and the nonprofit community. And so I love thinking about this as a hub that we can really create connectivity. And one of the things I like to think of Your Town now as a global show, because online it is global, and the Monterey Peninsula and our region is a global destination, a global place. And so I like, and I think we are a thought leader in many ways. And you've been instrumental in some of those thoughts, and particularly you and I worked together at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. And I want you to tell about some of the putting businesses together with MISS. Let's talk about some of that.
Well, I think Middlebury's that is a treasure here in this community, and we should all be thanking our lucky stars that they're there. I'll give you a good example. Last week, their Veterans Club, I guess it's a club, had a film documentary, and it was unbelievable. Should America be the police of the world? And it is a 54-minute documentary that if people haven't seen it, they're cheating themselves. It had Madeleine Albright and Condoleezza Rice, and they had significant people throughout our government through the last few years who were interviewed, to include General Mattis. So it was very timely because this was made prior to his appointment. But it really made me think differently, and I think having an institute that is like that in our community awakens your brain. It makes you think about how things are, maybe not the way you thought in the past. Maybe it makes you consider how are things changing, how's the world changing. So you and I worked as part of the Friends of
we were on the emissary committee, and so just that little glimpse into what a global powerhouse place just Middlebury is in this broader context. I mean, so this is a place that what happens here, the conversations happen here, the community that happens here does have global impact, and yet we live in this bucolic small town where the players know the players, and we can reach out and you can talk to the mayor, and that's so special. And then the overlay of the physical beauty on top of that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because you can, on Sunday morning, on a variety of talk shows, almost any Sunday morning, you can find one person who is somehow affiliated with Middlebury in Monterey, California.
I saw Bill McKibben on the NewsHour last week.
Okay,
yeah,
so that's how it is. You've got experts on Korea, experts on Russia, experts on monetary policy, cyber data. It's just, they're here, they are teaching, they are lecturing, and we're so fortunate because we have them. You know, you may see them while you're having lunch at Rosine's on Alvarado Street. They're in there too, and then the next day you see them on some kind of national news program talking about the next missile launch at whatever country is up next. So I think it's important. I think our business community really is starting to understand what an important asset Middlebury has, and also the way that we can all benefit culturally and diversity-wise. Diversity, in my opinion, is a word that's way overused, but we really are a diverse and cultural community, and we sometimes don't even think about it. We just take it for granted until you go somewhere else and you see everything is kind of the same, or people all talk the same. It's not the same here.
It's for a small town. First of all, the interesting people. There's so many interesting people here, and you can go meet them.
That's right.
Because just for a simple thing is you're not stuck in traffic, so it's not so hard to go to somebody and talk to them. You know, you live in the city. Everybody's in the city, but who's going to drive a half hour and then have to park their car? So just so it's physically easy to meet people here. People like meeting people, and what my goal with a show like this is so that people from the Naval Postgraduate can talk to people from Middlebury, can talk to people from the Business Council, can talk to people from the Chamber, can talk to people from the arts community, the ag community, et cetera, et cetera. It's a small enough place that the interaction creates, that's how things get done. And I want to go back to, with the language thing that you brought to Middlebury, and explain that a little bit.
Well, years ago, a group of people trademarked language capital of the world with the city of Monterey, and the city of Monterey did not keep the trademark active. So as a business community, we looked at it and felt like we are the language capital of the world. And the Business Council was still using the logo on its website. And so we explored the opportunity, and we went out and re-trademarked language capital of the world for the Monterey region, because language is not just in the city of Monterey, it is throughout. You've got language companies that are in Marina and Seaside, in Pacific Grove, there's one in Salinas. So it's important, I think, that we realize it's not just in a smaller geographic area, but it's throughout. Obviously, the leaders of it are the Defense Language Institute and Middlebury Institute, and then the largest company in our region is Language Line, but we also have Moravia and Media Locate and Translation by Design, and it goes on and on. So I think it's extremely important that we promote it and that we celebrate it, and that we let the world know that if you've got something that you need with language, this is really the place, whether it's translation, interpretation, if it's textbooks, or it's people-to-people talking, or on just a day-to-day basis of having a will taken a look at. I mean, there are so many things that people hear. When I was in banking, I used to constantly ask for help, where I'd have somebody selling a piece of equipment or a piece of land to someone, and they couldn't read the documents that were coming from another country, or maybe even the ones that are in our own country. So it's extremely important. But the language piece with our shrinking global economy is going to be key to how we all get along. Because if you cannot articulate and you cannot speak to someone and they cannot understand what you're saying, it can only have an unintended consequence, and it could be that it's not such a good consequence. So I think it's the best thing that we can do. And this place is poised for it. The amount of linguists that are in this community is crazy compared to the percent of the population.
And the amount of help these institutions are willing to do for the private sector. One of the things I want to get to with you is you've always been a champion of putting private sector and nonprofit together because sometimes they don't speak the same language and they don't understand each other. And it's such an important partnership, and you've been able to be on both sides of that divide and articulate that well. And I think that's something that you've always been involved in.
Well, I think for me it's important that we all stay interconnected, and as long as I'm around and am allowed to do things like this, I think it's important that we have a piece of that. You know, on this program alone, we had the City of Seaside government, we have G.I. Josie, a nonprofit, and we have you and me, who are our business people, who are speaking about how we can incorporate all of this into what we do on a daily basis. And there's nothing that stands alone, not one thing. There's not one nonprofit that can survive without some either person or business contributing to them. And they're a business, a nonprofit's a business for their clientele, but also they're in a business to get money from business and other people. So it's kind of a big circle, and it never stops. It just continually chases around.
Mm-hmm. And what, again, I harp on the idea of local globalism. I've always felt that this is a global place in a small area, and I know the half of it. I mean, how do you view it?
Oh, I think every day I'm shocked at who's here. We were talking at a meeting I was at earlier about the airport and who's flying in and out of here on a daily basis. We have no idea. There are people that come into the Navy Postgraduate School or Defense Language Institute or Middlebury or into some of our larger corporations. You know, we have no idea what CEO is here, what dignitary from another country is here, and we continue to be that. You know, I use the word micropolitan.
Oh, I like that.
I think we are a micropolitan. And when I look at our county, I look at it and I see every aspect of what they have in New York City or Los Angeles or Paris, but we have it on a smaller scale. So as you said, we can drive to it. We're not sitting in traffic. We're a 15, 20-minute sprint away from just about anything. Whereas if you're in a large city, you may be 2 hours out from it. And that's really important. When we did the higher education research map of this region, we show that it's a 47-minute drive from Monterey to UC Santa Cruz, in Santa Cruz. Now, if you are from out of the area and you look at it on a map, it looks like it's far away. It's not.
So we have the Salinas Valley, we have the Silicon Valley, and we have this education area and this beautiful resort and nature area, all in a small space. And I harp on this because I think self-image for a community is very important. And I think sometimes if you aren't, it's easy to get blasé. It's easy to not have a sense of where you are. But I think I think understanding the specialness helps, and being able to articulate the specialness of a place helps people think of themselves in a different place. Because nobody likes to think of themselves as provincial. Nobody likes to think that they're out of the mix. And when you see that, yes, you are a place that people live here, many live here by choice. They could live anywhere in the world. They live here by choice. Stuff goes on here. I mean, just to go to the Sunset Center and watch the Panetta lectures in this fabulous thing in this little.
That's a gift.
And to park on the street without paying it, putting money in the meter. That's pretty special. And so articulating that specialness to me is important just so people have that pride and see themselves as leaders. And I think that's important that a community views themselves as, we better do a better job. Let's think a little deeper. Let's have a little more civilized conversation. I was struck, and I've spoken with many people about this during the campaign season, where I felt the national debate was so paltry, and I found our local debates to be substantive, non-rancorous, able to hear points on both sides that I couldn't hear in the national level. And I think that spoke very well for us. I think our leaders, left and right, are people of goodwill and intention that seem that are approachable and reasonable. And I think there's a want of a civil conversation, and I think there is usually a civil conversation in this town.
Yeah, I introduce Senator Monning fairly often at things.
Yeah.
And I always say that he and I don't always agree, but that I respect how he gets to his decision, because I think that's important. I think that you have to be open and you have to be aware of the fact that there are other opinions. I mean, listen, I'm a minority party in this community. There's no doubt about it. But
you are, but
my friends are. It's not like I don't do things and we don't make progress on issues by working together. I would never say I'm not going to work with you because you vote differently than I do. That's
so doing it.
choice.
But doing that on a local level is important. I mean, we having a civil conversation, especially when the politics on a bigger level is very fractious and very broken. And I feel that in a small place, kind of, it's like a family. You kind of do have to get along, and that's kind of interesting.
So we're going to wrap, but I'm going to go back then to Middlebury. I think Middlebury fosters, and so does the Navy Postgraduate School and DLI particularly. They foster that sense of total community, and that our global world has all views, and that we should all be able to speak to each other and understand what somebody else is saying. And if we can do cultural differences here and make people understand. So you and I are going to talk a lot more about Middlebury, I think, as we go forward, because we both have such a great love of it.
Do I have one more second here?
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, as part of this civilized conversation is what we want to do at YourTown. So there's many ways to volunteer. You can be a sponsor, you can be a host, you can be a guest, and just please let us know.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm Mary Ann Leffel. We'll see you next month at YourTown. Please join us and tune in often. Feel free to share these, and Mark and I would love to talk to you how you can get involved. Thank you so much.